What's left in the class of 2025 for Iowa football recruiting? Plus, our first peek forward at the class of 2026. Plus, another monster performance from Caitlin Clark. All today, Locked On Hawkeye.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts, and you can also watch us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button while you're there. If you're on the podcast side of things, listening audio only wise, 5-star reviews, all that helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs have finished up, sports, they just stopped sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. We begin today with a look at Caitlin Clark. We got plenty of football coming your way today. We're going to talk some recruiting with our recruiting analyst here on Locked On. Brian Smith is going to join us as we will break down his favorite guys in the class of 2025 that have already committed, who's still out there, including the latest on Iose Epenesa. And we will talk a little bit about the class of 2026 and some very intriguing prospects here in the state of Iowa. We'll talk about that coming up with Brian Smith. But we begin today with a former Hawkeye, Caitlin Clark, in her final game before the long extended break for the Olympics. And though we'll get to see her on Saturday night, how about this swing and a miss? If you were tuning in, and for many of you, myself included, it would be the first time ever tuning in for a WNBA All-Star Weekend festivities. If you're tuning in Friday night, want to watch the three-point contest and see Caitlin Clark in that environment, it's not going to happen. Now, I don't know if it was Caitlin Clark just deciding, you know what, I'm going to put all my efforts into the game, and knowing her personality and knowing maybe the importance for her of this matchup on Saturday evening in the WNBA All-Star Game, that very well could be the case. But you have a marketable star. And you look at the top 12 games in terms of TV ratings this year, 11 of them involve Caitlin Clark. This is not an Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark thing. It's a Caitlin Clark situation. She is the one that has lifted this league. And without Caitlin Clark, we would still have this thing buried in the back. And that's not to denigrate Megan Gustafson, Kate Martin, not just Hawkeye players, but the players of the league. It's just reality. This league's been around for 25 years. And people haven't cared. Not at the levels that we're seeing right now. And an opportunity like this to have Caitlin Clark out there, swing and a miss. But like I said, knowing Caitlin, I think this has something to do a little bit more. So they're going up, if you don't know, against the WNBA All-Star team that Caitlin's on, against the Olympic team. The Olympic team that she was passed over. And we talked about the Minnesota Lynx coach and just what a just pitiful, awful human being she seems to be, certainly on the surface, in her comments that she has made about Caitlin Clark, and not just one time, multiple times, and seems to have some kind of personal vendetta against him. Not exactly what you want if you're a player, has just a stick up her butt about Caitlin Clark, and it's off. It really is, and it's just some truly deplorable things that she has said about Caitlin Clark. But that aside, an opportunity to go up against the team that she wants to be on, the Olympic national team, to play for a gold medal. And with injuries, it still very well could happen. She's going to have a little something here. And then we're going to have the histrionics of, for the first time ever, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are going to be teaming up. And that's going to be a storyline. I mean, that's going to be impactful. And people are going to be talking about that. People are going to be talking about how they are as teammates. The back and forth that shouldn't be a back and forth about Rookie of the Year is one of the most baffling things that I have seen in sport. People that know sports, people that know basketball, and how you cannot see that this isn't close. Angel Reese, nice rookie season. The double-doubles, well, there's something, right? There's something at the very least. You can talk about how many of those are off her own misses, and it's a bunch. You can talk about her shooting percentage, which is woeful for a post player. But all that aside, Angel Reese is not even close in consideration for Rookie of the Year. Now, we're not going to see Caitlin Clark win MVP in her rookie campaign. However, looking at the betting odds at FanDuel, I think it should be a little bit closer than it is. She is still a long shot at FanDuel, and Asia Wilson is the runaway favorite. Asia Wilson's an incredible player, best player in the league. However, Aces are not having a great season. They were banged up at the beginning of the year, got right, but they've been inconsistent even as they've got healthier throughout the course of the season. And speaking of health, certainly hope that Kate Martin is able to bounce back in a big-time way and come off that injury, that ankle injury, and bounce back and be ready to go after we get through this Olympic break and talk about a break there, getting a month off basically to get her right and get her back healthy for the stretch run for the WNBA. Last night, Caitlin Clark, it's what we have seen at Iowa. 24 points, 19 assists, 6 rebounds in the game. Again, didn't shoot it great from the outside, just 2 of 9 from 3. I think that's going to improve. We talked about it in the past, getting a little bit stronger, adding that physicality to her game. Those are going to be components that are just going to improve throughout her career. But watching it, there was a clip that I reposted on the Locked On Iowa account on Twitter, and watching those, the behind the back, that's going to get the highlights, but just the precision, the understanding of the game. And that's what sets Caitlin Clark apart from so many other players, is that she knows the game at an incredible level. Her basketball IQ is through the roof. Late turnover, it's going to happen. When you handle the ball as much as she does, when you're looking to set people up, absolutely turnovers are going to happen. You want to see that number dissipate. You want to see it get lower, and it will, because we're talking about Caitlin Clark. She's going to have this thing figured out in a big-time way. Looking forward to Saturday night and the WNBA All-Star Game as they face off against the Olympic national team. Big TV for that one as well. That'll be on ABC 7:30 on Saturday evening, and have a feeling that is going to get a pretty big television number with that. We're talking football as we continue here. Locked On Hawkeyes, the class of 2025. Though it's not done, recruiting has changed. It has evolved. It looks a whole lot different than it used to. One of the reasons is because of the transfer portal and the ability to keep scholarships open. There's also talk about something we've talked about in the past, that walk-ons are going away in football. And the way that Iowa builds their program, this is going to be a whole lot different. Now, they're not going to maintain the 85 scholarship limit if this comes to pass. Likely going to go to 105 scholarships that are available to be given out. However, that try-hard kid from your small hometown, are those opportunities still going to be there? That's going to be tough to see. It has been the lifeblood in many aspects of Iowa football, and not just the guys that walk on and the try-hard guys. We know about the success stories, the Dallas Clarks, and on and on and on. We've played that game before, but there's more that goes into it. There's a whole lot more that is there, and you need those kind of people, I believe, inside your program, and certainly a program like Iowa, in order to make it work. We'll have more about that going forward, but let's talk some recruiting. A look at the class of 2025. Brian Smith, his favorite commits of this class. We'll also talk about some of the uncommitted guys, including Iose Epenesa. What's the latest on that front? Sounds like Utah, Miami heavily involved. One of the recruiting sites has Miami right now as the runaway favorite to get his services. We'll talk about that. Terrence Smith, the wide receiver out of Chicagoland area. Need wide receivers, obviously, in this class, and that's going to be a big component as well. We'll talk with Brian Smith of football recruiting and a look at the class of 2026. We'll do that as we continue. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. You guys know it. You ladies know it. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But the playoffs have finished up in NHL and the NBA. We just have fewer games. All the sports just aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers. That's right, new and existing customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. A boost or a bonus each and every day. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Maybe you're taking a look at college football. They got game of the year lines out there for Iowa. A couple of the games, including the Cy-Hawk game in week 2 against the Cyclones. That is up there on FanDuel. Make a bet for them to win the Big Ten, to make the college football playoff. Heck, go crazy. You can bet on the Hawkeyes to make the national championship. They have it all at FanDuel. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Trent Condon back with you once again on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. As always, thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. So we're talking some recruiting today, and Brian Smith is going to join us momentarily. We'll take a look at everything that is happening in the world of Hawkeye football. A time period now where things start to slow down. We're going through the final weeks before we get to August camp. And this team, with the expectations that they have, recruiting takes a little bit of a backseat. It's a big deal in June. And the way that Iowa has things set up, the way that they go each and every year, really looking for that final weekend, bringing in a bunch of guys that have already committed and also bringing in the guys that they wanted. They've been highly successful over the last 3 or 4 years of really nabbing those top-level targets, the guys at the top that are going to be the ones that they want. And they did it again this year. Recruiting class that it doesn't wow you, but that's not Iowa football, right? I mean, it's not anything that overall you look at and say, this is going to be year after year a top 25 class. It just isn't. Currently, they're ranked 41st in the country. They were 29th. Big Ten ranked 12th, remember, out of 18 teams. So that is a component too. This is from On3. And different recruiting sites have different kind of ways of doing things. And you look at 24/7, their composite is a little bit different. You got the composite rankings, you got all kinds of things, and everybody's involved. And you got rivals still out there, and on and on and on. There's a lot to it. But as we look at this class of 2025, many people believe that Thomas Meyer is the headliner. The kid from Clear Lake had some big time offers. He's a tight end. Tight ends work at Iowa. One thing that I want to kind of get the perspective though today from Brian is when you look a little bit deeper down in the class and you look at a guy like the quarterback commit, Jimmy Sullivan, committed before Tim Lester took over the job, committed before we saw Tim Lester take over, Brian Ferentz leave, yet stay committed. And that doesn't always happen, and certainly at the quarterback position. So get his thoughts on him. We've talked about some of the recent commitments. We'll get about that, but then also what's out there. And I mentioned Iose Epenesa. And Iose is a guy that obviously has the bloodlines. Dad played at Iowa. Older brother played at Iowa. Iowa laid out all the stops for him in order to get him committed, get him ready to go. It was something that overall they couldn't have done more. I don't believe, at least as it pertains to the recruiting visit, the way that they've recruited him, the way that they've known him throughout the years. People knew Iose as a youngster. No, he was making his way to the football facility. He was there when AJ was playing, and he knows the program at an incredibly high level. But recruiting today is so much different than it was just 6-7 years ago when AJ was a prospect. And yes, there were shady dealings. Yes, there were under the table kind of wink and a nod agreements that happen to recruits across the country. Iowa doesn't operate in the same space that those programs once did. But now with NIL, it's different. And when you're talking about having what for many people can be life-changing money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars to play college football, there are no sure things. For every sure thing, you can point a million different directions, the way that it went awry, the way that it didn't work. And because of that, you have to change the way that you think about yourself. The NFL is not there for everybody. Even the top level prospects, they have a good chance, but it doesn't happen every single time. And when you have an ability like a Iose Epenesa to put in the bank as an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, when you have an ability to put that much money in your account, you have to think about it. Now, that's not to say that I was sitting this one out, that I was not doing everything possible in order to get his services. We mentioned what they've done laying out the recruiting part. They did that incredibly well from everything that we've heard. They've sold the program. They've shown what defensive linemen do at the University of Iowa, and I think that's a huge selling point. It's also Iowa. The glitz and the glamour and everything else that we see, it's just a lot different than what we're used to. And when you look at a place like Miami, they can sell the glitz, the glamour, and a whole lot more money. You also look at a program like Utah. And for a guy that grew up in Edwardsville, downstate Illinois, on the other side of the river from St. Louis, an opportunity to play with a lot of guys like you, Polynesian background. And hearing Epi, his dad, talk about his background, talking about those kind of things, that's impactful. That's something that matters. And Utah, I believe it's 25 players on their roster, something like that, that have Polynesian descent. And that's another angle. And that's something you can't sell at Iowa. Also, getting away. Some guys just want to do that. If you had young kids, you know that. There's just some people that are wired that way at 18 years old that they're ready to get away. They're ready to do something else. And because of that, this could be something we're dealing with. On3 still loves Iowa's chances. On3 still believes that Iose Epenesa, from the way that they kind of structure things and the way that they have their recruiting machine and what it spits out as Iowa, is a slight favorite in this one. But I believe it was 24/7 has a lot of people that continue to put in their crystal balls that Iose is going to be a Miami Hurricane. Would it hurt the program? What would it say about Iowa? Would he have a player that's dad played here, that loves the university, that sent 2 of his sons here already? What would it say about the future of this program? Is it reading between the lines? Will we read too much into it? Yeah, we probably will. Read into, is the end near for Kirk Ferentz? I think that's a component that a lot of people will definitely go to and look at. Do they know that Kirk Ferentz is not going to be there throughout his career, likely a 3-year career for Iose Epenesa? I think the speculation is merited. Kirk Ferentz got a birthday coming up here. Less than 2 weeks. August 1st. And usually right before Big Ten football media days, or right after football media days, it's a birthday. We take another one off. And as we get ready for year number 26 of Iowa football under Kirk Ferentz, you're just left wondering, right? You're left wondering, what does this future look like? And is it Seth Wallace that is going to be the heir apparent? The title that was handed to him this spring as assistant head coach, I don't think leads you to think that this thing's over by any means. I just don't think that's likely. But gets the wheels grinding. And to think that Beth Getz is just going to hand the job to Seth Wallace because that's Kirk's guy, I think that's short-sighted as well. Kirk Ferentz has accomplished a lot. But this is a great job. It's not a good job. This is a great job. Iowa football is a great job. Is it one of the best in the country? Top 10? No. But is it in the top 20? I think so. Recruiting base, obviously not at the same level. But when you throw in the Chicagoland, when you throw in the other components to recruiting, it's okay. I don't think there's many coaches that could turn them into even a consistent top 15 type of recruiting program. You just don't have the home base to do that. But outside of that, you look at the infrastructure. It's absolutely there. The infrastructure for Iowa football is at a high level. There's not an issue with that. You look at the way that they invest right there. You're in the Big Ten. Obviously, that's a huge leg up of everybody not in the SEC or the Big Ten with you. So you're right there. At minimum, it's a top 36 job, and we know it's a lot better than a lot of the programs out there. And maybe most importantly is stability. And we can get upset, and I know there's plenty of fans out there that get upset about the stability. They don't want to see it, don't want to hear it. It's too much. We need to be more aggressive when it comes to firing coaches, moving things on. But in the coaching community, it is looked at as a great thing. It is looked at as a huge positive. I'm 44 years old. I've seen 2 coaches in my life. Jay Hayden Fry and Kirk Ferentz. That's it. Good or bad, that is the reality. And that is a good thing when you're out there searching for your next head coach. Your pool of candidates, I believe, is going to be at a high level. You can win here. You can win at a high level. And even in the downturns, you can still keep your job. That's not the case in a lot of programs. I'm not talking blue bloods, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, not places like that. But that next tier, you don't see that kind of stability. You see people that are run out year after year after year. It happens a program very like the University of Iowa football program. That stability is incredibly important. We continue here, Locked On Hawkeyes. Single game tickets go on sale today. Don't miss your opportunity to get into Kinnick Stadium and not have to pay through the nose in order to get those tickets. We'll talk about that as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes. Back with you. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. I'm Trent Condon. Thanks for joining us here today. Doesn't look like we're going to be able to get Brian Smith in here. Apologies for that. Haven't heard back from Brian, but a swing and a miss on that front. Hopefully we can track him down for tomorrow's show. If not, we'll get him in here next week as we count down to the season upon us and what we're going to see with Iowa football. Your opportunity to get inside Kinnick Stadium, well, the chances are dwindling. We mentioned yesterday the Cy-Hawk game has expired. That's right. Tickets are sold out for the game. Now you can still get them on the secondary market. That's still an opportunity. You can go to Game Time and still pick up tickets there. However, if you want to go through the University of Iowa and the athletic department and the ticket office, your chances are few and far between. There's just not a whole lot out there in terms of tickets. Talked about this yesterday. About 1,500 tickets remain for many of the games. North of 4,000, though, for the Washington game. Just hit me as a little bit of a surprise. Something we talked about a couple months ago, every day, as you may remember this. Washington game, likely looking at a 11 a.m. Central Time kickoff for that matchup against the Huskies. When you look at the Big Ten schedule, games that are already set, and the likelihood of where other games are going to be, it's a very real possibility that's going to be an 11 a.m. kickoff. So it's overall, when you look at the week of games that week, I got it here in front of me, taking a look at the schedule for that week. So that will be, let's see here, week number, not the 19th. Go back a couple of weeks. It is, this is compelling. Apologies for that. What we have here, week 6, week 7, and I'm struggling to find it. Washington tonight. There we go. All right, here's the reason for it. Week 7. So that is Saturday, October 12th. The reason that this likely is going to be the big noon kickoff at 11 a.m. is the other big games happening that weekend in the Big Ten are on the left coast. You have the monster, Ohio State at Oregon. Normally, that would be the big noon kickoff. That'd be the 11 a.m. Central kickoff. However, it's in Oregon. You're not going to put that game 9 a.m. local start. Same thing. Penn State goes to USC that weekend. You're not going to do that as well. And then the other games. Well, Minnesota at UCLA may be okay on the surface. Again, you're talking about the West Coast. You're not playing those games at 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Pacific. The other games, Purdue at Illinois. They're not putting that on Fox. Wisconsin at Rutgers. Potentially, that could be. Rutgers has got a chance to get off to a good start, and we'll see how Wisconsin does, though the Badger schedule is incredibly difficult. And the only game that remains is the Washington at Iowa game. So lock that one up, get your tickets, get ready to go, and you'll be good to go for the season. Again, those tickets will go fast. It happens every single year. Single game tickets on sale today. So get those tickets if you want to make your way to Kinnick Stadium and get set up what should be an exciting 2024 season. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Again, Brian Smith, hopefully we'll have him on the program tomorrow. Hopefully everything's okay with Brian as well. Do you watch Fox Sports or ESPN all day on your TV? And do you have to turn down the volume because of all the shouting? It's time to make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, all streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your team is the Hawkeyes, and we've got you covered each and every day. Thanks for joining us as always. Hit us up with a like, a subscribe on YouTube, or a 5-star review if you're listening on the podcast side. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Hawks.